What is up, fight fans? I'm doing like my first live in God knows how long. It's probably been like a month, right? Maybe a month, or maybe like 2 months. Think I hadn't done a live since like December 2023. Not sure. Didn't check, but feels good to be back on here. And I am glad that it is fight week, man, for UFC 298. Very stacked card. And we get spoiled with two back-to-back crazy cards. I mean, we got this, and then we got UFC 299, which is even better. I don't know if I can say the same thing for UFC 300 yet, but there's still time. Uh, but yeah, I mean, just look at the card. I mean, we got Anthony Hernandez versus Roman Kopylov. And then of course we got Marab versus Cejudo. Can't wait for that fight. And then we got Jeff Neal versus Ian Gary, who isn't hyped for that matchup. Whitaker versus Costa. If Costa weighs in, makes weight, the fight's happening. And then of course Volkanovski versus Topuria. Just a special matchup. Because you got Volkanovski, who's like a long reigning champion. He's been a champion for 4.5 years. 5 title defenses, 6 title wins. And he's been dominant in like 4 out of his 5 title defenses. Only one close fight in that Max rematch, which he lost. But whatever, we don't talk about that. He lost the rematch to Max, but the Fight Island judges were, they were tripping. So they helped Volk's legacy, because if they got it right, Max would be a 2-time champ. Volk would have to work his way up. Volk would have been champ again because the trilogy would have happened, and we saw how that ended. So Volk would have beat Max for his belt back in the trilogy in like 2021, 2022. But with Volk being a 2-time champion, I'm going off track a little bit. With him being a 2X champion, history would be different. Volk might not have this many title defenses. Max would get one more defense. He'd beat Volk in the rematch, defend against Ortega, and then fight Volkanovski again. Or maybe they throw Zombie in there and he beats Zombie, but I don't know. The only reason why Zombie got a title shot is because Max Holloway pulled out of the Volk trilogy at UFC 273. And, he kind of pushed it back till July. So in between that time, Volk fought Zombie. But it would have been he beats Brian to defend his belt. So 4 defenses for Max. And he's champ, 2-time champ for over 4 years. Then Volkanovski gets the belt back. But Volk would not be regarded as currently the most dominant champ in UFC history, because out of all the current champs right now, Volk is the longest reigning. He didn't lose in between reigns. He's stuck with that belt, and he's came close to losing on a couple of instances. Max Holloway in the rematch, Brian Ortega with the guillotine. It's like he's cheated defeat both times, and he's managed to hold on to that belt as long as possible and look impressive while doing so. And even though he's had like 2 losses in the lightweight division to the same person, Islam Makhachev, who I believe is like the Volkanovski of the lightweight division, so no shame in that. It doesn't do too much to his legacy, although it does affect his position pound for pound because he's no longer number 1. Islam is still the featherweight champ. Greatest feather. Well, there's Aldo. I don't put him above Aldo just yet, but he's closing in on Jose Aldo, pretty much, right? He's closing in on Jose Aldo. What was I trying to say again? Oh yeah, the Islam fight. It doesn't really affect his legacy too much. Yeah. So even though yes, he has those losses to Islam, he's undefeated in the featherweight division. Will El Matador be the first man at featherweight to defeat Volkanovski? Could this be the one? And it's crazy. I'm seeing like all these like Instagram posts showing these like parallels between this rivalry. Well, I can't call it a rivalry yet, but between this, I'm gonna call it a rivalry. Between this rivalry and Aldo versus McGregor. There's this crazy stat where Conor was 14-0 in the UFC, or no, not 14-0 in the UFC, 6-0 in the UFC, 14 fight win streak. and 27 years old, fighting for the belt against the long-reigning champ Aldo, greatest of all time. That's crazy. And then Ilya Topuria, 6-0 in the UFC, 27 years old, and 14 fight win streak, 14-0. Could this be a sign that we're in for the dawn of a new era, that Volk is going to lose? I mean, he's not going to get sparked in 13 seconds. Of course not. I don't even see a first round knockout, but could we see a similar situation, man? I am a very superstitious guy. Anyone who knows me well knows I am actually extremely superstitious. So this could be the universe creating a similar storyline here. Although I don't think Ilya is like comparable to Conor McGregor as a fighter or a personality, an overall persona, or even how he's hyping up this fight and with his pre-fight antics. Like Conor's confidence was more convincing, more believable. Conor was better spoken because, of course, English is his first language. It's not Ilya's first language. Ilya's confidence just feels more, delusional, if anything. But still, man, Ilya's playing the game well, and I know he respects Volkanovski. I've seen him give Volk his praises in the media days, saying that he will go down in the history books as the best featherweight ever. And he even shook his hand when he wore his belt yesterday when he was posing with his belt, during the fight kit poses or whatever. And Volk was like, "Yeah, you're posing with that belt. Take the pictures now because you're not gonna wear it later." They shook hands, so Ilya does respect him. I just think he's talking the way he's talking to sell the fight. But deep down, he knows Volk is a tough fight. He knows it's not the easiest fight of his life. If he believes that, he's in for a rude awakening. But I think Ilya is smart enough to know that this is going to be a dogfight, and we're going to see a prepared Ilya Topuria who's going to give his best performance, knowing who he's fighting. You know what I'm saying? And again, speaking of Aldo McGregor, Topuria, Volkanovski parallels, did you guys see Topuria grabbing Volkanovski's belt? That was mad. He grabbed his belt at the press conference, and Volk reacted. He stood out of his seat trying to get his belt back from Topuria. Same visuals as when Conor grabbed Aldo's belt and Aldo stood up, riled up. I mean, he was more riled up than Volkanovski. Man, this kind of makes me wish that Conor and Volk were in the same era at featherweight, prime for prime, because that fight could have been really interesting to see how that one would have played out. But I guess we'll never know. But I do think Topuria, even though I'm picking Volkanovski to win the fight, I think he's going to win by a decision. I posted that on YouTube. I did a full main card prediction video. I do still think Topuria is a threat. I could be wrong, and usually Volkanovski makes every fight look easy, even against the toughest of opponents. I mean, he smoked Holloway in the trilogy after two tough fights the first time, especially the second time. We all thought Max was on his level and could have been the one to do it. Nope. I thought Brian would beat Volkanovski. And it's not necessarily because I just thought, oh, Brian Ortega's the better fighter. My logic and defense behind that prediction was I just knew even though Volk's skill for skill is better, I think I gave Brian's improved striking as shown in the zombie fight too much credit. And dumb enough, I thought his striking, from what we saw against Zombie, could match Volkanovski's. And I really believed in his power on the feet because Ortega can crack. And we've seen Volk get hurt in fights. I thought, there's a threat of Ortega rocking him and maybe submitting him. And I just felt over 5 rounds with how tough Brian Ortega is, how he's able to stay in the fight. He's always dangerous. I just thought it was a matter of time before he eventually catches Volk and knocks him out or submits him. And he was close. I'm so mad to this day that Volk popped his head out of the guillotine because he made me look like a dumbass in there. And I got so much flack and I got clowned for picking Brian Ortega. But all that needs to happen was Volk just needs to fucking be human and go out cold from that guillotine. And people would be giving me credit. I mean, people would say Brian got lucky, but still. But again, back on track. Volk makes the toughest of opponents look easy. Brian Ortega. Because Brian, I think, is very underrated. I just think his problem is he fights too infrequently. Brian is a good fighter. Max Holloway is a beyond good fighter. Zombie's washed. He beat Aldo very handily, which surprised me. The way he beat him too. Yeah, he's great. So I won't even be surprised if he steamrolls Ilya. I just can't see it. Like I'm getting the vibes from this fight that I'm getting those same vibes I got for Dominic Reyes, John Jones, Santos versus Shevchenko. Where sometimes you just know when either we're going to see an upset or we're going to see the champion challenged more than we're used to seeing. Like, even if Volk wins, this is going to be the toughest fight of his life at featherweight since UFC 251, Holloway Volkanovski 2. I just have a feeling it's going to be a close fight, and I picture a split decision win for Volkanovski because I just think Volk will have more output. Both guys will dish out a lot of damage, but I see Volk getting a few good takedowns here and there, rocking Topuria in moments, and just outlanding him on the numbers, and managing to just stay out of the pocket, not let Ilya get close enough in close range to where he can badly hurt Volk. And I think the times when Topuria catches Volk like on the button, it'll be too far in between. And Volk just might kind of out hustle Topuria. Like Topuria will have big bursts. He'll have big moments, like some flurries, moments where he tags Volk, takes him down, but I don't see him like landing that home run where he's able to close the show. And if he can't close the show, with how I see the fight going, I think Volkanovski wins the decision. But it will not be easy because Topuria has better boxing than anyone Volkanovski's ever fought before at featherweight, apart from Max. It helps Topuria that he's equally as short as Volkanovski, so there won't be that awkwardness of being taller trying to get in on the short, long opponent. Volkanovski's longer than Topuria, but they're around the same height. So that awkwardness won't be there in terms of Topuria finding his way in those exchanges in the pocket. So that's going to make it difficult for Volkanovski to actually stay safe and get away from Topuria. I think Topuria matches him in the grappling department. Topuria has good wrestling, so I think Volkanovski won't be able to go out there and just smother Topuria with his wrestling like he did to Yair. The only reason why he did that to Yair Rodriguez is because Yair, even though he's improving in that department, it's still a known weakness in his game that someone as well-rounded as Volk could easily exploit. With the level of Topuria's grappling, I think it's going to cancel each other out, and it's mainly going to be a striking match, which is going to be dangerous for Volkanovski. I think Topuria is going to pressure Volk more than anyone else has, but I feel like he's going to have the most success pressuring Volkanovski. Max tried to pressure him a lot in the third fight, but he was walking into shots, walking into counters and combinations and taking damage. Brian tried to pressure him. Zombie tried to pressure him. They got beat up while doing so. I think Topuria, with his level of boxing, is going to be the first opponent to apply pressure to Volk without getting beat up in the process because of his boxing defense. I feel like, yes, he'll get caught by like jabs, like Volk's jabs might sort of disrupt the boxing pressure of Topuria. Topuria is not like going to get the worst end of the Volkanovski counters like Max, like Zombie, like Ortega. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's kind of like the dynamic between Alexa Grasso and Valentina Shevchenko. Like Valentina is like the sick counter striker that you don't want to walk down because she will piece you up as you're trying to get close to her. It's like that with Volk, but Grasso, with her level of boxing, she was able to pressure Valentina better than anyone else was able to. And I think it's the same thing in this matchup. I think with Topuria's level of boxing, plus his height being the same height as Volk, it's going to make it easier for him to apply that pressure. So it's going to be challenging for Volk to deal with that pressure. Topuria is going to be pressing forward, very aggressive. And even if he misses a lot, like, I don't know, man. It's going to be kind of like Duplessis and Sean Strickland, where even though a lot of those shots of Duplessis wasn't landing that clean, It was still making the crowd ooh and ah and kind of swaying the judges. That's kind of how I see it in this fight. I think Volk will struggle with the well-roundedness, the boxing, and the pressure of Topuria. And I think Topuria, because he's got great 5-round cardio, he will be able to keep up with the stamina of Volkanovski. I think Volk has better cardio, but Ilya can swim in the late rounds if need be and still be effective and still be dangerous. But I do predict ultimately that, yes, Topuria is going to have a head start with his boxing pressure. Volk might fall behind from starting slow, coming off that KO loss. He might spend the first couple rounds feeling out Ilya, being overly cautious. And then I think he's going to have a conversation between the second and third, like, yo, Volk, you need to wake up. You need to get more aggressive. And I think Volk is going to switch gears in the third round. It's going to be kind of like Holloway Volkanovski too, where like after the second round, Volk really turned up and was able to kind of rally in the last few rounds to win a decision. That's how I see this fight playing out. And I think he'll just show that champ experience. But I don't see him finishing Topuria. I won't be surprised though if he does finish him. Topuria does drop his left hand when he's like getting in the pocket. So he could leave an opening for like a Volkanovski left hook. And I mean, Topuria is saying that he can't afford to make mistakes against Volk because Volk isn't dangerous and has no power. There's no way he believes that, man, because Yair, listen, he's known for a chin. He took shots from Emmett, but like, he took shots from Josh Emmett. But guess what? When Volkanovski landed that right hook, Yair was on wobbly legs and got finished. So, yes, I think Topuria is tough. Volkanovski could definitely hurt him and could definitely finish him with the hands. I just don't think it will happen. I know I'm kind of like wobbling a lot about this fight, but yeah. But it's going to be a good one, man. And I really want Ilya Topuria to win this matchup. Like, I hope Topuria beats Volkanovski. Nothing against Alex the Great. I just want to see new blood. I want to see a new champ. Volk's already had that belt for so long. It's just him being champ is making the division go stale. Like that's what happens when you have a champ that long reigning. Whereas if Ilya Topuria wins, he already sort of is etching close to star potential. He's got 2 million followers on Instagram, and he's doing all the right things. And I think if he wins this fight, Ilya's gonna go big. Everyone's gonna know who Topuria is. And it's gonna open up the division. More interesting matchups. People are saying if Topuria wins, he's gonna be the best featherweight in the world and will never lose again, which isn't true. Styles make fights. He may have the style to beat Volkanovski, but there may be other guys out there with better chances at beating Topuria than at beating Volk. Like I think Max Holloway could beat Ilya Topuria. I think Yair Rodriguez could beat Ilya Topuria. I don't think Ortega beats Topuria, but Ortega would have a better chance beating Ilya than beating Volkanovski in the rematch, right? So seeing Ilya versus Ortega or Yair, whoever wins that fight, or versus Max Holloway is interesting. Topuria versus Evloev is interesting. You know what I mean? Topuria versus Allen on the rebound is interesting. But Volkanovski, if he wins this fight, I mean, what's left for him? Beat up Movsar Evloev. Not really interested in seeing that fight. Beating Josh Emmett, who works his way back. Like, nah, man. I don't want to see him rematch Ortega or Yair either. I think if Volk wins, what he needs to do is I want him to vacate the belt. Maybe fight Evloev and then vacate the belt. Start a new run at lightweight. He's not going to get an automatic title shot with Islam as champion unless, like, the winner of Oliveira Saryukian beats Islam. If that's the case, he can get an automatic title shot. But if not, vacate featherweight, work your way up the lightweight rankings, and then I'm just not trying to see him in that division anymore. The division needs to breathe, man. It needs to breathe. Like women's bantamweight, Nunes finally left. The division is going to start to open up. It's still feeling stale with Raquel as champ, but it was so much better for the division now that Amanda Nunes is gone because it opens so many doors. Like Valentina Shevchenko, she lost the belt. Now women's flyweight actually looks good. You got so many good contenders. You got Natalia Silva, you got Manon Fiorot, you got Erin Blanchfield. So yeah, I'm excited for the future of women's flyweight as well. But yeah, I'm rooting for Topuria. And honestly, like I've never rooted for Volkanovski. In all honesty, every Volkanovski fight, I've wanted him to lose. I wanted Chad to beat him. I wanted Aldo to beat him. I wanted Max to beat him all 3 times. Ortega to beat him. Zombie to beat him. Um, Rodriguez to beat him. Um, I wanted Islam to win both those fights too. And I'm not really a Volk hater. He's just not one of my favorite fighters. And through his run, unfortunately, he's fought a lot of guys that I like. Like, I like Mendez. I love Aldo, one of my favorite featherweights of all time. Max is my favorite featherweight of all time. And Zombie, I wouldn't say he's like a favorite of mine, but he's a fan favorite. We all love Zombie, and it was his last run at the title, and it would have been a beautiful story just to see him become champion. I knew it wasn't happening though, but I wanted it. And Ortega, I know a lot of people don't like him, but I kind of F with Brian Ortega. Low key, like I actually do like Brian Ortega. I know he's known to be a bit of a D-bag to some people. I mean, I don't know the guy, but I like Ortega. I like his fight style. He's very entertaining, and I wanted to see him have a redemption story going from getting mauled by Holloway, having all this time off, coming back to beat Zombie, and then finally becomes a champ. Would have been a beautiful story. So I was definitely behind Ortega in that one. And also, the reason why I wanted Volk to lose to Korean Zombie and T City is because I knew if those two would beat Volkanovski, Max would have an easier and clearer path to becoming champion again. Because even though I did pick Max in the third fight, that was more so bias on my half. And also because the second fight was close, I didn't take into account Volkanovski's improvements. And I'm just a Max D rider, okay? Ride or die, I love Max Holloway, so I refuse to pick against him in the third fight. So I'm like, nah, I got Max in this third fight, but still, I was not confident. Like seeing how good Volk looked against Ortega and Zombie, and then also just knowing he already beat Max twice already in the second fight. I thought Max won, but it was such a tough fight. Like I knew like Max having to do it all again. Like if he was gonna beat Volk, it should have been Fight Island UFC 251. He got robbed. But I thought, man, I don't know if he can go back and beat Volk a third time. That was my mind, or a second time. That was my mindset. So I wanted Volk to lose that belt so Max could have an easier opponent, an easier matchup to become champ again. But Volk beat Korean. He beat T City. I picked Max anyway, and I got my heart broken. But I'm glad Makachev got the job done. I just need to see Volkanovski lose, whether it was at featherweight or lightweight. But I respect Volk. But now I want him to lose, not because of Max. I'm not thinking about him anymore. Or not even because Ilya is a favorite fighter of mine. Although I actually do like Topuria. I just want to see the young up-and-comer rise to the occasion and just lead us into the next gen, the new era of the featherweight division. And I do not want Volkanovski to surpass Jose Aldo because think about it. Look at all these other dominant champs who couldn't surpass their goats. Like Israel couldn't surpass Anderson Silva for the life of him. Uh, I'm not a Sterling fan, but he couldn't surpass Cruz. Uh, Although some might debate that. It's kind of up for debate because of Cruz's injuries, but nah, I don't like Sterling. So he didn't surpass Cruz. So he couldn't surpass him. Usman couldn't surpass or tie George St. Pierre. So I don't want to see Volk, who I'm not a fan of, do what my favorite fighters, my favorite champs couldn't do. So nah. But hey, if Volk wins and he surpasses Aldo, it is what it is. But now, what else do we got on here? That's right. I did not give my prediction for Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Lemos. I'm disappointed, man, that I don't have many viewers on here. Like, a lot of my loyal subscribers are not on here watching while I'm about to talk about Dern versus Lemos. I wanted them on here for this, man. That sucks. But oh well, I'm gonna talk about it. They can catch it in the comment section, or they can catch it when it's saved later. It was originally gonna be Tatiana Suarez against Amanda Lemos, and she would have crushed Amanda Lemos without a doubt. Suarez would have dominated, and she would have been the clear next. She would have been clear. She would have been the clear contender next in line for the title, for the winner of of uh of Whaley versus Xiaonan. But it doesn't matter because if Dern wins or Lemos wins, neither of them are in a position to fight for the belt. Not Dern, especially not Amanda Lemos. So I think either way, Suarez is gonna get her title shot. I do wish Tatiana was fighting this weekend though, because I love Tatiana. That's my girl. I just want to see her fight. I want to see her in action. And it's kind of funny how both times Tatiana was supposed to share a card with Volkanovski, UFC 266 and now UFC 298. Both times she's pulled out. Kind of insane. But let's talk about Lemos versus Dern. I had to do a lot of thinking about this fight. But I've made up my mind. I think I'm going to pick. I could be wrong. I'm gonna go with Amanda Lemos. I'm just done. I'm done trusting Mackenzie Dern, man. I'm so done trusting her. Because every time I put my faith in her, I put my faith in her jiu-jitsu, her grappling, she always lets me down, man. She let me down. Look, I was a Dern hater and denier when she beat Randa Marcos, when she beat, I think it was Sam Hughes she beat. And when she beat Verna Jandiroba and Nina Nunes, I'm like, nah, bro. She's all hype. She sucks. She's going to get exposed. Then overnight, I just became a Dern simp. I was like, I can't beat him? Join him. All right, I'm on the Dern train now. I simped her for some reasons that some of us men know. DJC Combat 2 Garbage Podcast. Okay, I don't know who you are, but thanks for tuning in, though. Thanks for giving me attention. Anyway, back on track. So yeah, I became a bit of a Dern simp for some obvious reasons. But yeah, but I rode the hype. I'm like, okay, you know what? She keeps winning these fights. Now I'm going to start picking her. And I think that was a bit of foolishness on my part because, look, the fights that she had before the Marina Rodriguez fights were matchups that were favorable for her to win. I should have seen that coming. And then the fights ahead were not so favorable. She started fighting better people like Marina Rodriguez, Tisha Torres, and Yan Xiaonan. And she should have been able to submit Marina. She had a clear ground game advantage over Marina Rodriguez. First of all, she couldn't get close enough to her to get her down frequently enough times. And then when she did get a hold of her, she wasn't able to get her down because Dern can't really wrestle that well. She has the jiu-jitsu, but not the wrestling to get the fight to the ground. But then when she did get Marina down, she had all the control time in the world and couldn't sub her. Very frustrating. And then barely beats Tisha Torres, couldn't sub her. And then Yan Xiaonan, it was the same thing as the Marina Rodriguez fight, man. And then she beats Angela Hill, couldn't finish her, but she put a great performance over Hill, who's a tough opponent, dropped her a bunch of times, and then she fights Andrade. I pick her to beat Jessica. In hindsight, I wish I picked Andrade. The only reason why I picked Dern, because I thought, oh, this is her time. She's getting better, and Andrade is declining, so Dern's going to win because of Andrade's losing streak. So I counted out Jessica, but she's still a killer, and she killed Mackenzie Dern. She offed Mackenzie Dern. Dern couldn't work her takedowns. And her striking just sucks. And Andrade was a better striker and was too powerful. And, Mackenzie Dern made a mistake of dropping Jason Perillo, who was good for her striking. And now she's doing a quick turnaround, short notice fight against Amanda Lemos. Not enough time for her to make adjustments from that Jessica Andrade fight. I feel like Dern is coming back too soon. I feel like she needed a little bit more time off. And she's fighting a dangerous opponent in Amanda, who is a better striker than her. Like Jessica, has one-shot knockout power, but more sniper-like accuracy. And Amanda Lemos also has a good ground game too. Her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is also extremely good. And Dern isn't able to submit certain fighters. She could not submit Yan Xiaonan. She could not submit Marina Rodriguez. So even if she does get the fight to the ground, I do believe Amanda Lemos could survive. She survived 5 rounds with Zhang Weili. I know Zhang doesn't have the level of BJJ as Dern, but still, surviving 5 rounds, taking the champ to the distance despite getting beat up everywhere says a lot. She's very tough, and Lemos is hard to finish everywhere, whether it be on the feet or on the ground. So I think Dern can't strike with her. I don't see Dern taking her punches. And Dern doesn't have the wrestling to get the fight to the ground. She doesn't have the striking to set up her takedowns, to get the fight to the ground. And if they do hit the mat, I do think Amanda has good enough jiu-jitsu and composure to survive on the ground and eventually get back up. So I think Dern's in trouble in this fight. And plus, I think Amanda might have some size on her as well. I could be wrong. Um, but yeah, I see Amanda getting it done. I see Amanda Lemos winning this fight by TKO, probably in the second round. It's going to be sad, though. I won't be surprised if Mackenzie wins. Like, I do want Dern to win this fight. I feel like she needs to win this fight. But I'm just not seeing it, man. I do not like that Dern is taking this fight on short notice. I know it was like 4 weeks, 4 weeks since Suarez pulled out, and 4 weeks since this fight got announced. So 4 weeks, it's kind of enough time, but it's not a full camp, and it's 3 months after Jessica cleaned her clock. So I do see this fight going relatively similar to the Andrade fight. So yeah, but we'll see. We'll see. A Dern win wouldn't surprise me. I'm just not impressed by Mackenzie. And again, I'm just done putting my faith in her because whenever I do, she always lets me down. So yeah, we might see another Dern fumble. And then what I could see happening is they might reschedule a Lemos Suarez fight, maybe for Rio. They might do Tatiana Suarez versus Amanda Lemos rescheduled UFC 301 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Or I think it's in Sao Paulo. I can't remember. No, I think it's in Rio, the Giuseppe Arena. Or if Dern wins, same thing, same venue, but I'm thinking the winner of this fight, they might book to fight Tatiana. Although, best case scenario, they just give Tatiana the title shot right away. Okay, you are a fan of Aldana. Aldana got smashed by Amanda. Yeah, she did, but she came back strong and she smashed Carol Rosa, and she's still a top contender in the bantamweight division, and she's part of the next generation at bantamweight, and she's going to fight for the belt again soon, and she's going to be the bantamweight champion, and there's nothing you can do about it. So keep hating. Keep hating, bro. And love me or hate me, even to my haters, shout out to my haters. If you're watching my video, even if you're watching just the hate, I'm glad you're tuning in because you're only adding to my views. You're only giving me attention. That's what I want. And it only motivates me. All right. But yeah, those are my thoughts on that fight between Dern and Amanda Lemos. Okay. I talked about Volkanovski versus Topuria. I could kind of cover some of these other fights. I'll talk a little bit about. I'm going to talk about Merab versus Henry Cejudo. So, Merab versus Henry. So, Henry says that this is his last fight if he loses. So, this makes me want Henry to win even more, man. Like, I like Cejudo. I don't really hate Merab as much as I used to hate him. But still, I don't know, man. I want to see a Henry Cejudo, like an old vet, former champ like Henry, have his moment, have his redemption moment. He came so close in his last fight to winning the title. All it took was 2 other judges to score the fight in his favor, and he's the bantamweight champ again. But it didn't go his way. So I think he needs to win this fight. His back is against the wall. And if he can win this fight, then, hey, I think if Sean O'Malley is able to get past Marlon Chito Vera, which I think he will, then that sets up Sean O'Malley versus Henry Cejudo. And Sean O'Malley versus Henry Cejudo, that's a huge fight. They got a good rivalry going on there. I think Henry's going to sell the fight well. I think it's more of an interesting fight than Merab versus O'Malley, but we'll see. But let's be real, man. We can't have nice things, and I think Merab is going to win again, which is annoying, because I hate when Merab wins. I hate when he proves me wrong, and I hate when he beats my favorite fighters. Really frustrating. I was pissed that he beat Jose Aldo and decimated Peter Yan somehow. Like, I totally did not see that coming. I mean, I knew he'd be a tough fight, but I did not think he'd just run through Piotr Yan. And I mean, the cardio he displayed in that fight, I mean, I knew he had great cardio, but the pace Merab fought in that fight was insane, bro. It was insane. Like, this dude has to be on something like EPO. Because I swear, his cardio was never that good before. It was never that good before, man, I swear. But whatever. It's going to be interesting to see how the Cejudo fight turns out, because both guys are good wrestlers. Merab's wrestling really isn't based around being successful with it. It's more so spamming takedowns, wearing you out, scoring points by holding you against the cage. Hopefully Henry Cejudo will not back up a lot in this fight. He needs to hold his ground and not let Merab hug him against the cage, because I think if he can keep the fight in the center, I do think Henry Cejudo, I mean, he doesn't have the best boxing. I still think he could outstrike Merab. Because Merab doesn't have very pretty striking either. And I think of the two in just a pure striking match, like without a takedown threat, I think Cejudo does piece him up. And I think like Henry Cejudo in his prime would dominate Merab, like with ease. Like Henry in his prime was a different monster, but I don't know, man. What we saw in that last fight with Aljo, even though it was a close fight, it was a split decision. For Triple C standards, that was washed up in my books. Like, I think a prime for prime, Triple C versus Aljamain Sterling, I think it's a much different fight. And I think Henry Cejudo wins. I think he wins by decision against Aljamain, prime for prime, but not as close. It's still competitive. I think Aljo, with his length, like his reach and his movement and his volume and his pressure, I think would still give Henry Cejudo problems, but I don't think he'd have as much success, out wrestling Triple C, getting the fight to the ground. I feel like Henry, with the time off, had a bit of a decrease in strength and takedown defense. So I think in his prime, I think, again, he beats Aljo more convincingly. Like, Aljo would still pose problems, but I think Henry wouldn't be overthinking as much as he was in the octagon. I feel like a lot of ring rust showed in that fight with Aljamain. His timing was off. I just think a better Cejudo just is better than Aljamain and probably beats him like 49-46. Although Henry Cejudo does have great timing and execution on his strikes, I could see him prime for prime blasting a clean knee or a switch kick to the jaw of Aljamain shooting for like a bad takedown. And then we got Ian Gary on the card as well. Man, Ian Gary has been kind of quiet this week. I'm surprised he's not really talking as much crap to Jeff Neal, because I know they had a bit of a beef like ahead of UFC 292 before Jeff pulled out. And I mean, he created a beef with Neil Magny. Like, he had to fabricate a rivalry just to sell the fight. Like, I'm surprised he's been as respectful to Neil as he is. Which, I mean, hey, fair play to him, more power to him. Keeping it cordial with Jeff Neal. I guess we'll see how he performs on the night of the fight. I originally did want Neal to win the fight against Gary, but now I want Ian to win, because if he wins, it sets up a big matchup with Colby Covington, The build-up to that fight would be huge. At this stage, Colby would take the fight. Colby's been talking about fighting Ian, and Colby said, hey, if he gets past Busboy, which is Jeff Neal, then I want a piece of him. I want that smoke. Although both guys coming off losses, the fight could still happen. We'll see. And then we got Whitaker versus Costa. Like I said in that prediction video, I do have Robert Whitaker winning this fight. I think he's going to win this fight very comfortably against Paulo Costa, but it's still a dangerous fight. I'm not overconfident in Robert Whitaker. I mean, he's coming off a bad loss at Dricus du Plessis, where he got dominated everywhere and he got knocked out and he took a lot of damage. And who knows? For all we know, his chin could be spent. Paulo Costa does have power. Whitaker's not careful. He could get hurt. Paulo's got dangerous body shots. His pressure is effective. And people say that he doesn't have power. I can see why they say that because he doesn't one-shot people, but he does have power. I mean, he dropped Yoel Romero with one shot, a clean hook. So he could definitely drop Robert Whitaker. And I won't be surprised if he drops him. I won't be surprised if he actually gets a finish. Like, Robert's a safe pick. I think he'll win a clear decision. But do not be shocked at a Paulo Costa upset. But I just think Robert's going to dance around him and jab him to death. And I mean, Robert's coming for blood, coming off that Dricus loss. Like, he's motivated and he knows he needs this win. He does not want to, lose 2 in a row. That's not going to be good for his legacy. That's not going to be good for his path back to the title. So it's all or nothing for Robert. And I like what he said. He's 33. He doesn't have much time left in his prime, and the time is now, and the only way is up. And if he loses to Paulo Costa, like, another setback could ruin him. So I love the stakes of this card because you got 3 fighters on this card who badly need to win. Alexander Volkanovski, Robert Whitaker, Henry Cejudo are the 3 fighters on this card who absolutely must win. Like, it is essential. If they lose, they're done. If Henry Cejudo loses, he says he's retiring, and that's going to be 2 straight losses, and that's going to ruin his legacy because he could have stayed retired after beating Dominic Cruz, rode out to the sunset with that win streak. His legacy would be protected. Now he could end up going out with 2 straight losses instead. And with a win for Cejudo, he gets respect back, and he potentially earns the number 1 spot. Well, definitively, he'll be the number 1 contender, and then he'll fight for the belt against the winner of Vera versus O'Malley. And the thing is, too, if Henry did not pull out of the Chito Vera fight in August, he was going to smoke Chito Vera, man. It's so annoying that things worked out the way they did. Like, Henry was supposed to fight on the 15-year anniversary of when he won the Olympic gold medal. Like, August 19th, 2008, Henry Cejudo became the Olympic champion. August 19th, 2023, he was supposed to fight in Boston against Marlon Vera, and he was going to get the win over Marlon, and I think he wouldn't need to fight Merab. And I think he could have easily got a title shot. You know what? I think he would have beat Vera, and I think he gets a title shot at Sean O'Malley at UFC 299, which really sucks. Like, it's crazy how much injuries kind of change the landscape of careers in this sport. And then again, speaking of stakes, Robert Whitaker, with him, he really needs this win too because he's 33 years old. I mean, he's not that old. He's young, and he's already accomplished the belt. He's reached the top of the mountain, but he's trying to work his way back up. And Robert, for this next run towards the title, he needs to stay consistent, and he has to stay winning, man. Like, it's like after he lost to Izzy the first time where he was able to string together, like, I believe 3 straight wins. He's got to be able to do the same thing coming off the du Plessis loss. He cannot have 2 straight back-to-back losses. He just can't afford it because if he loses this, what's next? If he loses this, he'll end up fighting the winner of Cody Brundage, Bo Nickel. Or he'll probably fight like Jack Hermanson, like a fight night, Apex main events, or like a Brandon Allen, and that's just a complete downgrade for Robert Whittaker, man. Those guys don't deserve to fight Whittaker, so Whittaker needs to be in a position where he is still amongst the top best middleweights in the world. Like a win here over Paulo, I don't know if it'll give him a title shot right away. I think Duplessis and Izzy have unfinished business they need to tend to. So I think in between that time, I think Whittaker, if he wins this fight, needs to fight Sean Strickland in a number one contender bout. The winner of that rematches Dricus or fights the winner of Dricus versus Adesanya. I think that's fair. Or maybe do Whittaker versus Hamzat. But yeah, like I said, it's a must win for Robert because he's a longtime veteran who's taken a lot of damage and didn't look good in his last fight. And again, he doesn't have a lot of time left in his prime. He's giving himself till 36 years old. And if he loses now, that's it for him. He'll never be champ again. He'll never work his way back to a title shot again. So, or the road will just be way longer. And then, yeah, for Volkanovski, he badly needs this win over Ilya Topuria. Like, he needs to win more than Topuria needs to win. Because I think, like I said, Ilya winning is better for the UFC. It's better for the division if Ilya Topuria wins. But Volk needs to win this fight because right now he's coming off a bad knockout loss to Islam Makhachev. And Volkanovski's 1-2 in his last 3 fights. And if Volkanovski loses the belt to Ilya Topuria, that's going to be 2 losses in a row. He's going to be 1-3 in his last 4. He's already old. He's 35 years old, going on 36. One more loss is not going to help Volkanovski in his career. That's going to hurt his legacy. And I think if he loses, yeah, there's room for a rematch, and it depends on how he loses. But let's say Topuria knocks out Volkanovski. Volk already just got knocked out a few months ago. Then Volkanovski's done. So Volk has to come back, and he needs to make a statement. He's got a point to prove. He's got to prove that he's still the man at featherweight, that he's still the best featherweight in the world, you know? And he's got to be able to humble Ilya Topuria, man. He can't let this young joker, his loud mouth, come in here thinking he's the man, and then actually being successful. That just wouldn't be a good look for Volkanovski. So yeah, Volk's 35, 1-2 in his last 3, coming off a bad knockout loss. He can't afford one more loss, and he can't afford to lose his featherweight title after just getting knocked out by Islam. It just won't be helpful for him. But we'll see, man. Like, I will feel bad if Volkanovski gets beat. But yeah, I think for featherweight's sake, it needs to happen. But for Volk's sake, he needs to get the win. But I love cards like these that have multiple fights that have high stakes. Those cards are always interesting, and this is just such a special card. I love that after the main card opener, the next 4 fights are going to be great fights. Merab versus Henry is going to be action-packed because Merab always pushes the fast pace. He's going to make Henry fight. He's going to force Henry to fight, and Henry is going to fight for his life because he knows he needs this win. Jeff Neal versus Ian Gary is guaranteed violence, and it's possible that Ian could get knocked out, or Ian could go out there, put a masterclass on Jeff Neal. Whittaker versus Costa, going to be entertaining because Paulo is going to try to get in Whittaker's face, and Whittaker is going to be pumping that jab out there, putting together clean, smooth combinations, and it's going to be a war, but a win for Whittaker. But there's potential. There's that suspense that, oh, what if Paulo Costa knocks him out? That possibility's there. And then Topuria Volkanovski, an exciting, competitive matchup where Topuria has the perfect style to get the job done against Alexander Volkanovski. All right. Carol Rosa's garbage. I know this Joker is gone. This clown's gone. This guy said small views. Dude, I get so many views per video. I mean, lately I have not been reaching 100 views, but my average views are I usually get views 100 plus. You know, lately I've been getting views under 100, but even still, 70 views, 64 views, that's not bad, man. and I have like 700 like 705 subscribers. And I do predict I'm gonna get 1K again. What's up, Rick Allen? What's the main event for UFC 300, bro? I don't know, man. I wish I could tell you. But Dana White is keeping us in the dark. I heard there's like a UFC 300 press conference tomorrow, and we still don't have a main event. Like the UFC, they're scrambling, man. I've been saying it should be McGregor versus Chandler. McGregor versus Chandler should be the main event for UFC 300. But for some dumb reason, I don't know why, Dana White is refusing to let Conor headline, even though both Conor and Chandler are campaigning for it. And if the issue is it's a non-title fight that will be headlining over title fights, just make it a 165-pound fight and slap a belt on there. It's that freaking easy, Dana, but he won't do it. They tried doing Khamzat versus either Dricus du Plessis or Khamzat versus Leon Edwards, but now Khamzat at UFC 300 is completely off the table now because Khamzat's saying that he won't fight at Ramadan. And du Plessis he's not like denying 300, but he's not completely like sure if he wants to fight there. He's saying that UFC Africa is more important. 300 is just a number. And, I get it. He's putting his health first. He doesn't want to like risk doing a quick turnaround after taking damage against Strickland. So du Plessis is not guaranteed to fight at 300, but du Plessis versus Adesanya could easily headline. And I think the UFC originally, yes, they were planning Bilal versus Leon on that card. I think they're doing everything in their power to make sure that fight doesn't headline. Yeah, I'm kind of afraid that it's going to come to a point where it's going to be Leon versus Bilal 2 to headline 300, which would suck because Leon's last fight was boring, and I respect Bilal. He's a good fighter. He's just not an exciting style to watch. And Leon and Bilal could be exciting depending on the styles of matchups who they fight. But them versus each other, it's not made stylistically for an exciting matchup. Like that matchup has boredom written all over it. Whereas Leon Usman 3 was exciting because Usman made it exciting. Because Usman went out there, pushed a pace on Leon, and forced Leon to fight. You know what I mean? Whereas Colby just fought like a pussy and didn't do anything. He was passive. So Leon also, I wouldn't say he was passive, but Leon fought at a low pace, a low output fight because Colby wasn't pushing him, right? And then Gilbert Burns against Bilal wasn't aggressive enough and also was fighting on one shoulder. So Bilal just kind of danced around him for 5 rounds while Gilbert wasn't pushing a pace. The Luque fight with Muhammad wasn't that boring, but it wasn't that exciting either. I mean, Bilal's last true exciting fight was the Sean Brady fight where he got him out of there. But he's not going to have an exciting fight with Leon. I know Bilal is like doing everything in his power to sell the fight, and they have a good rivalry. It's just not UFC 300 material. So I hope du Plessis can suck it up and just take the Israel Adesanya fight at UFC 300. Come on, man. I mean, it's possible they could do Alex Pereira, Israel Adesanya 3 on that card. I wouldn't mind that. Or Pereira versus anybody. But I feel like if it's Pereira versus Magomed, fans are going to complain because Magomed is boring, even though he knocked out Walker in the last fight, which is very exciting. They don't want to see a Dagestani get a title shot at 300. I would love it to be Pereira versus Hill, but Hill, like his team is saying that Hill isn't ready to like May. So Hill Pereira probably ain't happening till Rio 301. So again, I hope du Plessis is going to be ready and it'll just be Izzy versus du Plessis. Bro, the UFC 300 main event should be Kevin Lee versus Michael Chiesa, the rematch for the 165-pound title. Yeah, boy. That's funny, man. That would be hilarious if that actually happened. And it's funny because Michael Chiesa said, oh, he tweeted UFC 300. Boy, we have a treat for you. So I don't know if this is the analyst Chiesa talking like who knows something we don't, who's like reporting on like this behind the scenes exciting fight that doesn't involve him. Or maybe Michael Chiesa is referring to a fight with himself, and maybe it could be Chiesa versus Kevin Lee at UFC 300 because Kevin Lee did come out of retirement. Bro, did you see Volk's old man gimmick at the presser? Yeah, I did. I saw. I thought that was funny. I know Volk did that old man skit as well. I thought that whole presser was funny, you know. And I was kind of surprised that like the crowd was pro Volk, anti Topuria. Like, LA does not like Ilya Topuria, and I wonder what would have happened if Topuria. I wonder what would have happened if Ilya versus Volk would have happened at UFC 297 as planned. Like if Volk didn't fight Islam and they booked Volk in Toronto versus Topuria, that would have been interesting because I would have been interested to see how Toronto would have perceived both Topuria and Volk because I was there live, like not at the fights, but like at the weigh-ins. I watched the presser from YouTube and like man, the reception Sean Strickland got and the boos Drickus got, I wonder if it would have been the same in Toronto or if more people would love Ilya. And also Toronto loved Myra Bueno Silva as well. All right. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this card, man. And then we got UFC 299, which is such a great card. I'm in Toronto, bro. That's sick. So am I. Did you go to the fights live? Did you go live to watch UFC 297? I wanted to go, man, but the tickets were like so expensive. I mean, honestly, I should have just got them when they were on sale for $400, but I don't know. I did not think it was worth freaking 400, so I just didn't end up going. Which is unfortunate, man, because given how good the atmosphere was for the weigh-ins, I can only imagine how epic it could have been to be there for the fights. Strickland got pop here, but his fans are mostly idiots. Yeah, I agree. And I'm anything but a Strickland fan. I don't like Sean Strickland. But now Sean Strickland, man, he's become a superstar. I mean, because he beat Israel Adesanya, that boosted his stock. And also because he's just a big mouth. He's controversial. He talks a lot, says a lot of controversial things in the media, and he's kind of a real one. And fans, they love him. They get behind Sean Strickland. And I'm all for it. And yeah, I saw what he did to Sneeko, where he beat the piss out of him in sparring. And now he's got beef with Jake Paul. I would love to see Sean Strickland lock horns with Jake Paul. I don't know. I mean, because Sean Strickland is under UFC contract and he's not a retired UFC fighter, I don't know if the UFC would let him box Jake Paul. But I think they should spar. They should have a hard sparring match in the gym, boxing only, cameras. They should record it because I would love to see how Jake Paul's boxing will go up against Strickland's boxing because Paul does have good hands. He's big. He's athletic. But, I mean, Strickland would be better than any other opponent Jake Paul has fought before because Jake has mainly fought wrestlers who can't box, like Ben Askren, like Woodley. Or he's just beaten like, I don't know, he's beaten non-boxers for the most part, you know, or boxers who are like cans, you know what I mean? But he's never beaten a good boxer. And then Nate Robinson was like a basketball player. And then he beat Anderson Silva, which surprised me because Anderson Silva had some pretty good success in the realm of boxing. I thought Silva would have been able to win that fight, so knowing that he didn't. But, you know, fair play. He beat an old Anderson Silva, outstruck him. But still, he's yet to go up against a fighter in their prime who's actually, like, still really good. And Sean is in his prime, and he's got better hands and better defense than anyone else. Jake Paul's ever fought before. But who knows, man? Jake Paul keeps winning when he shouldn't. So we'll see. I do hope it happens. I don't know if I would say Sean is a superstar, bro. You got to win your fights to be a superstar, and he lost last time. True, but a lot of fans thought that he was robbed, and I don't think he lost stock from losing a split decision to Dricus du Plessis. And he has that Israel Adesanya win to his name. So, and he's got like 1 million followers on Instagram. It seems like a lot of the casuals know who Sean Strickland is now. So he is up there in terms of star status in the UFC. But I mean, if he got knocked out by du Plessis, then that might have hurt his stock for sure. Like if Dricus would have slept him, then who knows? Sean's name might kind of die out. And I think he'd definitely slip into obscurity, but because it was a close fight where Sean arguably won, I thought Strickland won that fight. His name value still holds strong. Bro, do Bronx is going to drop and choke Armin. I don't know, man. I hope so. I want Oliveira to win that fight. That's going to be a tough matchup. I'm scared for Oliveira. I think Armin's a bad matchup for Charles, similar to how Islam is. Because you got another guy who is well-rounded, good in the striking, has knockout power, has high-level wrestling, and is very good on the ground, and won't be easy to submit. Like, he's got the threat of being able to take Oliveira down, maul him. And then on the feet, I mean, Oliveira, I think, is a better striker. And I do think he's more technical than Saryukian. Saryukian can still keep up with him striking-wise. Oliveira's chinny. And I do think Oliveira's going to get hit more in this fight than he did against Beneil. And he's going to take more damage in this fight like he's usually accustomed to than the Beneil fight. Like, the damage he took against Poirier and Chandler and Gaethje, he's going to take in this fight. I do think he's going to get beat up a little bit, like win or lose. But I wouldn't be shocked if Oliveira did club and sub Armin Saryukian. Like, if he was going to win that fight, that's how I could see him winning, or he could just knock out Saryukian entirely. But this is going to be a way, way tougher matchup than the Beneil Dariush fight. I'll put it that way. Nah, dude, Du Bronx got this. I hope you're right. People always sleeping on Du Bronx. It's nothing new. That's true, but Oliveira, I mean, he is getting more respect now that he's defended the belt a couple of times and beaten some of the guys that he did. I think fans are finally starting to, like, see him for the fighter he is. But you know what? You're right, because coming off the Islam fight, I mean, okay, people picked him to beat Gaethje. Like, people were doubting him against Chandler and Poirier, not against Gaethje, but he was the underdog against Islam. And then against Beneil, a lot of people did doubt Charles Oliveira. They said, oh, he's done because Islam finished him. That means Beneil could finish him. And Charles showed levels. And speaking of Islam, man, I do want to see that rematch between Makhachev and Oliveira. Like, I know Islam dominated him the first time, so he should be able to do it again. But for me, it's kind of like the Whittaker-Adesanya dynamic, because even though I'm a Team Izzy guy, and I wanted him to beat Whittaker, I picked him to beat Whittaker both times, I wanted Robert Whittaker, who I like less than Izzy, to get a second chance at Israel Adesanya, whereas a lot of fans were saying the same thing about Izzy Rob as they are now about Makhachev Oliveira. They were saying, oh, Robert got dominated. The rematch wouldn't be any different. We want to see other contenders fight for the belt. We don't want to see Robert get a title shot. Robert arguably shouldn't have had to go through Cannonier and Gastelum to get a title shot. Like, he should have arguably got a title shot off beating Darren Till. But the UFC, they did everything in their power to make sure Izzy got a new contender. They wanted Till to win. They wanted Jared to win. Gastelum, I don't think that one mattered as much. But Robert Whittaker went through them all and won. And I wanted him to win. I picked him to win all those fights. And he worked his way back. And I was interested in that rematch because I knew that Whitaker was better than what he showed the first time. And I knew that in the rematch, he's got better chances at winning. And I was right because the rematch was so close. Now it's the same thing with this fight. A lot of people think it's a foregone conclusion that Makhachev will just beat Oliveira the same way again, which is possible. You never know. Like at this level, outcomes could vary. And I think Oliveira in a rematch would have a better chance because I think he'll be more ready for Islam. I don't think he'll take Makhachev as lightly as he did the first time. I just think preparation-wise, he'll be better. I think he'll be in a better mental state. Like when Oliveira said showing up, something was off. Honestly, I believe Oliveira. It could be excuses, but I do believe Charles Oliveira because we saw the way he performed. Even though it was against Beneil, we saw what he did in his next fight. So I would like to see him get a second shot at Islam just to see what he could do because I still do think he's a threat to Makhachev. Even though Makhachev has the better striking defense and did win in a stand-up and dropped Oliveira, on paper, Oliveira's striking offensively is better. The knockout power is always going to be a threat. If he can catch Islam, he can always hurt him. I think his jiu-jitsu on the ground, still dangerous for Islam Makhachev. I think Oliveira has decently good takedown defense to where he can actually stuff Islam's takedowns. Because if you noticed in that first fight, the moments they were on the ground was not because Islam took him down. Well, most of the moments weren't anyway. It was because Charles Oliveira pulled guard the first time, and the second time, he stayed in the clinch too long. Islam swept him down. And then the third time, Islam dropped him. But when Islam was actually shooting for takedowns, Oliveira was defending. So I just think if Oliveira could take a smarter approach, he might have a better chance at winning or at least making the rematch more competitive. So I want Oliveira to beat Arman so he can earn another shot at the title because this isn't fair for Oliveira. He was already supposed to fight for the belt in October. He pulled out. I think it's BS that they did not reschedule the Makhachev rematch title shot for Oliveira. So it would be a damn shame for him to lose his title shot from pulling out just to fight an up-and-coming killer and then lose, and not fight for the belt. That would be sad. Bro, DuBronx is a Hall of Famer already. His resume is crazy already, bro. Oh, I agree. Oliveira has a great resume. I mean, he's beaten so many good names. Beneil Dariush, Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje. I mean, he's gone through a killer's row. I'm not going to count El Kakui, Tony Ferguson, because Tony's washed. But even that's on his resume. So Kevin Lee. Lee's kind of a bum, but a good win nonetheless. So he beat Kevin Lee. And he managed to put together an 11-fight win streak after losing to Paul Felder, which is extremely impressive. Very impressive that he was able to beat Paul Felder. Or sorry, not Paul Felder. Sorry. I mean, it's very impressive that he was able to string together 11 wins in a row, beat the people he beat, and become a world champion. Because before that title run of Oliveira, before that run he had from 2018 to 2022, he was super inconsistent, bro. Like, he debuted in the UFC in 2010, started off 2-0, and then gets subbed by Jim Miller, wins the next fight, and then loses to Donald Cerrone, and then wins the next one, and then loses to Cub Swanson, Frankie Edgar, and then wins the next couple fights, loses again. It was like win, lose, losing streak for Oliveira. It's like he could just never put it together. And then something in him just switched after getting his face elbowed to oblivion by Paul Felder. He hit some switch and he just manned up, had a boost in testosterone, and just improved his skills. And he switched teams after losing to Paul. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he went to a new gym, like the Shootbox Academy. I don't know if he was with them for the Paul Felder fight, so I think changing camps could have played a big part, and then also he had his daughter, which helped him in terms of motivation. So yeah, Oliveira, something in him just changed, and he finally was able to become the great fighter that he, tried to set himself out to be, if that's a good way to word it. And I'm happy that he was able to accomplish what he did. I'm glad he was able to win 11 fights in a row. I'm not happy he beat Chandler or Poirier because I like those guys and I wanted them to be champion. I'm happy he beat Gaethje though. And I'm just glad he was able to be the world champion. And I would not be mad if he did become a 2-time lightweight champion. I kind of do want that to happen. But do Bronx Armin, that's going to be a good fight. I have not talked about that fight enough times. Like I've made a bunch of videos. I reported on Yan Xiaonan, Zhang, and Holloway versus Gaethje. I did not do a video on Armin versus Oliveira. Well, yeah, I have not sold on a pick yet. I haven't yet made a prediction, but I'm definitely rooting for New Bronx, but I am worried. All right. And then Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje, BMF title. I hope Max Holloway wins that fight because I feel like if he loses this fight, this could be a career-changing loss because when Gaethje beats people, he doesn't just beat them, he changes them. I mean, look what he did to Cowboy. Look what he did to Tony Ferguson, ruined both their careers. Michael Johnson was never the same after that beating. Who else did Gaethje beat? Oh yeah, James Vick was never the same. Ended his career on a losing streak in the UFC, outside the UFC. Yeah, he just ruins people, and I don't know how Poirier is gonna bounce back in his next fight against Benoit Saint Denis. I don't know how he's gonna look. I mean, he didn't get completely battered and mauled against Gaethje, but he got flatlined by that head kick. And then Fiziev, yeah, that's right, lost his next fight. So yeah, if he beats Max, bro, I don't know. What if Max is the next Tony and they're similar? And Max already takes a lot of damage in his fights. So I want Max to win for the sake of his career and also because he's my favorite fighter. And even though winning, or it's not my favorite fighter, but he's one of my favorite fighters. And even though winning the BMF belt would not qualify as him being a world champion, I just want to see Max wear a title again, wear a belt again, BMF or undisputed UFC gold. I just want to see him get that BMF title and get his first win in the lightweight division in the UFC. Holloway going down. Yeah, unfortunately, I agree. I think Gaethje's going to batter him. I think he's going to batter his legs. I think he's going to punish Max Holloway every time Max tries to close the distance. Like, Max is not going to be able to be himself in this fight. And Max Holloway lately, in his matchups, like, Max has been very passive and cautious. Like, lately we have not been seeing the Max Holloway who goes out there and unloads like a barrage of punches, like what he did against Aldo Ortega Cater. Since that third Volkanovski fight, Max has been a little bit different. Maybe for the better, maybe for the worse, but against Arnold Allen, the way he fought, it wasn't like how Max usually fights. He had to be very cautious of the power and the counter striking of Arnold Allen. Against Zombie, even though he knocked him the F out, same thing. So against Gaethje, I don't think he can beat Justin by just sticking and moving because he doesn't have the reach to do it. He's got good boxing. I don't think he's got better boxing than Gaethje. And then Gaethje's got the leg kicks. I don't think Max has the power to knock Justin Gaethje out. Um, I don't see him hurting Gaethje. I think Gaethje can take his shots. And yeah, I think Gaethje's just going to win this fight comfortably. And I think it'll be like a more competitive version of the Tony fight, but very similar. I think Costa wins. That's interesting. I mean, I will not be surprised if Paulo wins. He's got a very good shot at beating Robert Whittaker, especially now. Like 2 years ago when they were gonna fight in the Apex, I think Whittaker would have dusted him. I think he would have dusted him all the same at UFC 284 last year, but now who knows with Whittaker? Because I thought he would dust Duplessis and he got dusted himself. I spoke about Dern versus Lemos earlier when one of my haters was on the stream. But Lolita, who do you think's gonna win that fight between Lemos and Dern? I got Amanda Lemos winning because I just think that Dern is coming back too soon. Just got knocked out in her last fight. Doesn't have a good wrestling style to get the fight to the ground. She's already beaten the stand-up against Amanda Lemos. And yeah, she doesn't get her down. She's cooked. Yeah, you got Lemos too? Same. And then I guess from there they're gonna make Lemos versus Suarez. They're gonna rebook that fight. I have a feeling, even though I want Suarez to get a title shot next, and she could, I just have a feeling that the winner of this fight is going to fight Tatiana Suarez. And then the winner of that is gonna fight for the belt. Miranda Maverick. Who's she fighting? Who's Miranda fighting? Oh, Andrea Lee. I think Maverick will win that fight. Maverick will probably just out wrestle her. Everyone was telling me about Natalia Silva um, throughout a lot of my lives I've done. So I'm glad. And it's funny. I've had so many fighters get recommended to me, and I said I'm gonna watch them, and I never did. They might be saved in like the search bar on my laptop and Google Chrome, but so many Brazilian fighters. There's Natalia Silva, and then who was that other Silva girl in flyweight? Karine Silva. I wonder who's next for Natalia. I would like to see Natalia Silva fight Macy Barber next, or the winner of Macy Barber versus Caitlin Chukagian. Suarez is prone to injuries. Yeah, but honestly, the reason why she pulled out of this fight with Lemos is because she tweaked her knee in sparring, but it wasn't like a bad injury. Like she doesn't need a surgery. Her knee just kind of swelled up. So she asked to have the fight with Amanda pushed back like 2 weeks. So maybe UFC 299, they could have booked that fight. They could have put it on a fight night. But Amanda just wanted to fight on that card. So that's why the Dern fight's happening. Because Amanda didn't want to wait for Tatiana Suarez. But Tatiana, she could fight right now. Like Tatiana could fight like in the next 2 weeks if she wanted to. So it's not a bad injury. I don't think in the long run she's gonna get any more like injuries that will be that severe. Like there might be some fight cancellations, but I think she's gonna show up to her next couple fights. Her next fight, if it's for the title, she's showing up. If it's a title eliminator, she's showing up. And I'm gonna predict, like last year, Tatiana's gonna fight 2 times. I think if it's for the belt though, I feel like it'll be one fight this year because I think the winner of Yan Xiaonan versus Wei Li will probably turn around in like the end of the year, like August or like August through November. I see the winner of 300 turning around. So Suarez might not fight again until August, September, October, November, December in that case. But if Tatiana Suarez fights a non-title fight, she'll fight again probably April, May, and then fight for the belt at the end of the year. Because Amanda wants to fight in Brazil. Okay. Well, I mean, they could have easily rescheduled Suarez versus Lemos for UFC 301. That could have been it. Like, she could have told the UFC, let's fight Suarez in Brazil. They could have booked that fight in Brazil. But whatever. I think when she knocks out Mackenzie Dern, they can book her and Suarez in Brazil regardless. Who do you think's gonna win between Marina Rodriguez and I gotta speak down, but who do you think's gonna win between Marina and Jessica Andrade? I want to say Marina, but you can't count Jessica out. She's still a killer. But it's a different fight from the last one. Andrade was blessed with a grappler who isn't good with takedowns and can't strike. So that was easy for Jessica Andrade, but Marina Rodriguez is a striker. So I think Andrade would need to go back to her wrestling roots to win this one. Do you think Andrade is going to wrestle, or do you see her like overwhelming Marina on the feet, knocking her out? What do you think is going to happen? I'm gonna edge Marina, but my pick could change though. Like I could easily see Andrade winning. But yeah, the issue with the wrestling is Andrade has not wrestled since 2020. She tried to wrestle Shevchenko, but like she's not went for a high crotch slam in like 3-4 years. I don't know why. Like ever since the Shevchenko fight, she's just been focusing on her striking, even against fighters that she should be taking down. Like Yan Xiaonan, the reason why I picked Jessica to win, because I thought she'd be smart enough to exploit that hole in Yan Xiaonan's wrestling. I thought she was going to wrestle. I did not know she was just going to strike with a good kickboxer in Yan and get herself knocked out. And then I see why she didn't wrestle Blanchfield, because Blanchfield is a better wrestler. She wouldn't have been successful trying to get her down anyway. With Lauren Murphy, she didn't need to wrestle because Lauren Murphy isn't good on the feet, has no threat on the feet. So I know if you pose no threat in the stand-up, Andrade feels no need to take you down. But Yan Xiaonan is a threat in the stand-up, and she felt no need to take her down. So I don't know. If she does not wrestle, she's not going to win unless she lands a Hail Mary shot on Marina Rodriguez. Marina's too skinny. Yeah, true. She's skinny, but she can fight her ass off, though. And then Holly Holm versus Kayla Harrison at UFC 300. Man, I thought it was going to be at featherweight, and they're doing it at bantamweight. Kayla's fought at lightweight. That's insane, bro. I know she's like starting the cut now, but who knows if we're going to see the best version of Kayla Harrison. But Holly's like old and washed up anyway, so who knows. Holly Holm lost to Myra Silva, and that did not age well. So Holly can literally lose to anyone. But if Kayla Harrison can make 135 and be healthy, I think that's going to save the women's bantamweight division because we need someone like Kayla Harrison in the picture because she's dominant with her judo wrestling style, brutal finisher. I think she could take over, and she's got a good rivalry with Pena, and I think she would end Raquel Pennington. So, yeah. But I hope Juliana Pena puts an end to this Raquel madness. I'm just not confident, though, because Pena hasn't fought in some time, so... Oh, Cyborg's helping Holly in preparation. Man, Kayla ducked Cyborg, eh? They could have fought in the PFL. But I mean, okay, I'm not mad that Kayla's in the UFC. Like, I've wanted her to come to the UFC for some time. But like that Cyborg fight was bigger than Kayla going to the UFC, which sucks. And speaking of Cyborg, she wants to fight Amanda Nunes again, I think at UFC 300, or either way, she wants to be re-signed to the UFC and rematch Nunes because Nunes has teased coming out of retirement. So I think we're going to see Nunes back in the future. If not this year, I think next year Nunes is going to fight again. I just can see it so clearly. Especially if Pena becomes champ again, I think Nunes will come back and try to do something about it because she said she couldn't leave her with the title, so we'll see. All right. Well, I've been on here for an hour and 25 minutes. It's 12 a.m. Eastern time, and people in my house are sleeping, so I think I'm going to sign off this. Clarissa called out Cyborg at Kick for boxing. That would be a good boxing match, actually. MMA, Cyborg claps her cheeks, but boxing, I think Clarissa Shields would win because that's her strength. Well, yeah, I'm gonna bounce. Fun live. I'll definitely try to get another live in here soon and cover more topics. Thank y'all for tuning in and peace.